right, so word on the street is Drake bought a fake chain from Tupac. This is the infamous death row pendant that Tupac wore on the cover of his album, All Eyes on Me. This is also allegedly a similar chain that Tupac wore in his last concert at the House of Blues before he passed away. And people are saying that the chain is fake. People are saying that Drake bought a fake chain. This is someone who would know the chain better than anybody. He's former security for Death Row Records. His name is Reggie White. Let's see what he's got to say.
There's nothing to him to buy all this merchandise that he believes is Tupac. Drake, all I want to advise you, bro. I saw on the back of the chain that says All Eyes on Me 1996. Just so that you know, Suge gave those chains out to people, especially the first round of chains in 1995.
Okay, so there you go. This is former security of Death Row Records. He's seen many of these Death Row chains. He's their security, so he's seen many chains by Death Row Records. He's insinuating that the chain that Drake bought, which is here, is fake. So this is the chain Drake bought. And this is the back of it, which he referenced. It says All Eyes on You 1996. And then here's Tupac's chain right here. So this would not be the first time that Drake has bought a artifact from Tupac. As we all know, Drake bought Tupac Shakur's ring, probably one of the most valuable hip hop artifacts. So yeah, this will be Tupac's ring. Drake purchased the ring for a little over $1 million back in 2003. Kendrick Lamar mentions this ring on Euphoria.
That you got a ring, on God, I'm ready to double the weight. Canadian nickel make Pac turn in his grave.
He's not very happy that Drake has the ring, but I mean, hey, it was an auction at Sotheby's. Kendrick could have bought the ring too if he wanted to have it. I mean, it was up for auction. And there are also more examples of Drake purchasing artifacts from hip hop legends. There's Pharrell's white gold brain pendant chain. Drake purchased this at an auction for $243,750 according to Vibe magazine. There's Pharrell's skateboard chain, which you can see Pharrell wearing it here back in its prime. That Drake purchased, you can see Drake is wearing it here. If you look at the 6 on his chest, you'll see the skateboards right there. This chain was listed for $103,750. Again, at another auction. It seems like Drake is buying all this stuff at an auction, and he bid on it and he won it. And there's also this older clip of Drake geeking out about having an autographed microphone by Pusha T. It was an autographed microphone by Pusha T. This was before the whole story of Adidon, Drake versus Pusha T beef. Drake was a huge Clips fan. This is why he's a big Pharrell fan, buying his jewelry.
One day I was looking for like autograph stuff from Clips because I was like a really, really big Clips fan. Guy in Virginia that supposedly had a microphone that Pusha T used during the show. It was like plastic, but it had his autograph on it.
So you can see, even back before he was famous, he's on eBay looking for things signed by rappers. He wanted to be a rapper so bad. This was his dream, that he's almost living vicariously through them by holding their microphones, wearing their chains. Drake says on the song, yo, I wear every single chain when I'm in my house.
I wear every single chain, even when I'm in the house.
This is just a part of the whole rapper thing for him. But then there's also this G-Unit chain, right? And now it's not an original G-Unit chain, but Drake did have the chain recreated by Johnny Dang for the Family Matters video. It's that like iconic start of the Family Matters video where Drake spins the chain, flips off the camera. Yes, that was recreated for him. It's not an original G-Unit chain, but still, it's Drake having a G-Unit chain. He's not a member of G-Unit, but he wants one of these hip-hop memorabilia, right? Now, y'all can let me know, what do y'all think? Do y'all think it's weird that Drake is kind of collecting all of these different hip-hop memorabilia pieces that legends had, such as Pharrell's chains? He's got the G-Unit chain recreated. He's got Tupac's ring. Do you think it's weird? I personally don't find it weird. You could find it odd. Like, why are you so obsessed with hip hop? But I mean, this is no different than like an NBA player wanting to own the original Jordan 3s that were worn by Jordan, or the flu game Jordans. He wants to have that. He puts it in an encased trophy stand in his closet. I don't find it odd that he has this penchant for hip hop memorabilia. I mean, Drake was a hip hop head growing up, and according to his own music, he was kind of distant from it a little bit because he lived with his moms. But then he would see, you know, this side of hip hop culture when he would go with his dad. So it's probably something he's always yearned for and never actually been super engulfed in. So this is one of the ways that he engulfs himself in it. I don't think it's odd to be a collector. Hey, if you've got the money, this is, you know, your hobby. I personally don't find that odd. It's easy to pick an angle where you're like, yo, this is so weird. Drake has an obsession with hoarding hip hop memorabilia. It's getting out of hand. These pieces belong in a museum, not in his personal collection. And shame on the people selling off hip hop history like it's nothing. I mean, this is a fine take to have. You can certainly say he's hoarding hip hop memorabilia, but any collector of, vintage items or of anything really, someone could describe your hobby as hoarding it. I have a vinyl collection sitting right there. It's milk crates stacked almost to the ceiling, and I have more vinyls on the way. Some could say that I'm hoarding vinyls. Sure, all of these vinyls are not the original pieces that were created by the artists, and some of them are signed. Some of them have specific authentic qualities of them, either first presses or they were signed by the artist. Limited editions, there are only 500 copies, 1,000 copies of this specific vinyl. So some could say that I'm hoarding. There are people who collect NBA jerseys. They go to NBA games and they ask the NBA player, "Yo, let me get your jersey. Sometimes they'll give a headband, a sweatband, and people collect these, right? You could say that's odd. Why do you want this man's sweaty headband, sweaty jersey? But this is what they do, right? Collectors. Collecting items is one of the hobbies that it's very easy to look down on it because, yeah, it can easily be seen as hoarding. Now, another common critique would say, oh, these pieces belong in a museum. At which point I would say, that's fair. But what museum is really going to take Cameron's pink fur and hang it up in the museum? I know there are some museums that may do this, but the process, number one, it's a very drawn out process to even do that. And this is something, the museum argument, right? Like there's dissent that has not been really talked about the museum argument. So when we look at certain museums like in Europe, they will house items that they stole while they were colonizing places in Africa, places in South America. They take certain items and places in their museums. Native Americans, people have an issue with this. Like people in that culture, they have an issue with like, yo, you have our cultural items locked away in a museum somewhere. Like that's not yours, right? Whereas the counter argument to that would be, hey, how are you mad that Tupac's jewelry is no longer just sitting with some random white collector? Which is a lot of these collectors, I'm not going to just say they're white. I mean, I don't know what ethnicity they are, but you essentially have these cultural items that have been bought and purchased by collectors. And these are not necessarily hip hop collectors. They're specifically collecting hip hop items because they love hip hop. These are people who are just buying and collecting things because they think it's going to increase in value. So essentially they have no use for it and it really doesn't mean anything to them, right? So you have Tupac's jewelry that could be sitting with a random collector like that. But now you have Drake who goes and buy this jewelry. Drake is a hip hop legend. So now why are people upset? Again, it just goes back to the European museum argument. The Benin bronzes from Benin, the Kingdom of Benin, which are taken during looting. The Magdala crown, the Rosetta Stone. These are artifacts from Africa, various places, whether it's Benin or Egypt, that are held in British museums. These are not being held by someone in Benin, he's a collector. Someone in Nigeria, they're a collector. Like, no, these are being held in London museums. The Humboldt Forum in Berlin, which is in Germany. This is a dissent that people really don't talk about. On one hand, you're mad at the actual hip hop guy for buying and purchasing and holding on to these items, this memorabilia, but you want it in a museum instead? What you wanted at the Smithsonian? You wanted at the British Museum in London? Tupac's chain, Tupac's ring? I would just like to see what y'all think about that. I mean, y'all let me know. Unless there's a hip hop museum you want to put it in or something, sure. Yeah, and shame on the people selling off hip hop history like it's nothing. Again, these people, they're not necessarily a part of hip hop culture. They're collectors by trade. This is what they do. To them, it's just an item. We can say shame on them or they're doing their job. Now, the last part of this that I want to get to is the part where people are saying that the chain that Drake purchased is actually fake. The Tupac chain that he purchased is fake. People are more so using this to throw a shot at Drake. Like, you got fake shit. You bought some fake shit. But that really doesn't land because obviously dude has enough money to buy pretty much anything. I think it's less of a shot at Drake. It's more of a shot at the person who sold it to him, which is a man named Alexander Bitar. Was a part of an Emmy-nominated series on Netflix called King of Collectibles. It's all about collectors, and he sells all types of stuff. You can look at his Instagram. So by saying that Drake's chain that he purchased from Alexander Bitar is fake, to me, it's less of a shot at Drake. Like, you're really just challenging Alexander Bitar's, who his slogan is "I sell history." You're challenging his reputation. That's almost the equivalent of accusing an athlete of steroids. You better have some concrete evidence, because you are challenging his whole reputation by saying something like this. And Alexander Bitar responds. On August 24th, Drizzy showed off the newly acquired jewelry on Instagram. The purchase was from WeSellHistory.com, with renowned artifact collector Alexander Bitar noting the sale on social media. Drake purchased Tupac's iconic Death Row Records necklace pendant and a Thriller signed album by Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. So yeah, that's huge. A Thriller signed album by Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. However, since Drake shared the post, questions have risen about the chain's authenticity. One Instagram page claimed that the piece Drake purchased is different from the one that Pac donned on the All Eyes on Me cover. Alexander Bitar responds, Tupac owned multiple Death Row Records pendant. While the exact number is unknown, it was certainly not very large. He has to say that, like, yo, it's not a large amount of Tupac chains out there, because if there were a bunch of them out there, it would lower the value of each individual chain. If you say there's a small amount, it's not a very large amount of them out there, yeah, you kind of hold the value on the chain that you sold. The statement reads, some pendants have slight variations, such as differences in stone settings or the bail. There is photographic evidence showing him wearing pendants with these minor distinctions. Ooh, I would like to see someone uncover that. There's photographic evidence showing Pac wearing pendants with minor distinctions. However, they all share the same design, but with subtle differences. This is why the Instagram post you reference is inaccurate. And even in that Reggie White clip that we posted earlier, that we played earlier, he mentioned that there were kind of like rounds of chains.
Just so that you know, Suge gave those chains out to people, especially the first round of chains,
Like there was this round, there was that round, like there were different times where new chains were created. So yeah, it's feasible that there are minor distinctions in the chains. I think calling it fake is more so a shot at Alexander Bitar, because his entire life and reputation is collecting and selling collectibles and memorabilia. So if you're saying, yo, Drake, your chain is fake, that's really challenging him. This is why he responded. He has to respond. He has to respond to this. This is like being accused of being on steroids, if not worse. It comes out that he's selling fake items. Is he gonna get this Netflix look anymore? Who's gonna trust him? I mean, that's such a heavy accusation to levy against someone that if you don't have evidence, if your only evidence is, yo, this is different from the one that Tupac wore on the All Eyes on Me cover, which no one said that this is the exact chain from then. They're saying that Tupac once owned this chain and wore it. If you don't have evidence to suggest otherwise, you're hurting this guy who he seems just like a regular dude who collects stuff. He seems rich though. I mean, look at this suit, what the heck? But he just seems like a guy, right? Doing his job. So if you're ready to make those accusations, it's less of a shot at Drake. It's more of a shot at this guy. Let me know what y'all think about that in the comments. Would you ever purchase hip hop memorabilia from someone? What would it be? I know a lot of y'all big Michael Jackson fans. Would you want that signed Michael Jackson vinyl, signed by Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson? That's huge. And to me, it just seems like Drake is a collector. He collects these things from artists that he likes. I don't see the big deal. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Top5rapwebsite.com. Peace.